Each vote casted on election day will dictate the course of the next 6 years, a crucial and challenging term for the 17th President of the Philippines. Examining the candidates' platforms allows voters to determine whose priorities are most aligned with theirs. It is with this awareness that the Filipino electorate can enact change through their chosen head of state. Welcome to Foreword 2022, the Presidential Candidates Assembly, a platform where presidential candidates discuss their vision and plans of action for the next 6 years. This event is accredited by the Commission on Elections in cooperation with our media partner, the ABS-CBN News Channel, and the student-led initiative Atin ang Boto. We would also like to acknowledge our partner youth group organizations from different regions across the nation. Sulong Philippines, Institute for Nationalist Studies, Kalikasan Pablo, Kurit Bulawan, We the Youth Vote, Sinag Quezon Incorporated, UP Samahan Tungo sa Progresibong Administrasyon, Xavier University Central Student Government, External Affairs Council of the ASMPH, Naga City Junior JCs, Autism Strong Philippines, and Zenith Philippines. We thank everyone who is watching the live stream on our digital platforms, and the other series of interviews of other presidential candidates will be posted on the GUIDON's Facebook page and YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Don't forget to use the hashtags Forward2022 and Blueprint2022 when posting about the interviews on your social media pages. I am Mira Desado from the GUIDON, your host for today's interviews.
The format of the interviews is as follows. Each round starts with the introduction of the agenda. The areas of national interest serve as umbrella topics for their respective points of action. There will be 4 rounds in total. After the introduction of the agenda, the candidate will be asked to answer moderator-curated questions to elaborate and substantiate their statements, positions, and programs on the specific agenda. There will also be questions from invited youth group organizations for each round.
With that, let us meet today's candidate. Today, we will be talking to Sir Francisco Ashley Acedillo. He is the spokesperson of the presidential candidate of Senator Panfilo Morena Lacson Sr. Hello, Sir Ace.
Hello, Mira.
Yes, thank you for joining us in today's interviews, as well as taking the time and the effort and the willingness to be with us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right, we begin with the first question. On Senator Ping's website, he proposed implementing the Education Plus program, which will provide students with free tuition, a monthly allowance of 5,000 pesos, and a government internship for senior high school students. Can you expound on the details of how this thrust will improve the Philippines' quality of education? Then again, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so if you notice that there is a stipulation there for 5,000 peso allowance, the reason being is that it's really not enough that you provide education free from elementary up to college. Most families can barely afford to send their kids pamasahe, yung merienda, or most of them, in fact, especially in the lower levels, elementary and high school, they go to school with empty stomachs. So that is what the allowance is for. At the same time, yung mga pangangailangan outside of books and other materials that cannot be provided by the school will be covered by the allowance. Now, the government internship program serves 2 purposes also. One is, of course, to give, to train them in employable skills. At the same time, since government agencies also have the means to provide allowances, that will also supplement the 5,000 monthly allowance that is provided under the Education Plus. So you put that all together, you have free tuition, you have a monthly allowance, training for employable skills, plus some additional allowance by way of that government internship. To us, I think that will be a good start in terms of not just ensuring na tataas yung level of completion ng ating mga estudyante, but more importantly, they're also given skills that will serve them for the rest of their employable life.
Aside from the basic right to education, the Filipino people also have the right to adequate housing, which is related to my next question. However, according to the government data in 2018, among our population of 106 million, 4.5 million were homeless, 3 million of whom are in NCR. The population has risen to 109.6 million since then, with the pandemic exacerbating the problem. What policy changes will the Lacson administration implement to make decent housing affordable to every Filipino? 2 minutes.
Okay. Over the course of this interview, there will be a recurring theme, and that theme will be the BRAVE program, or the Budget Reform Advocacy for Village Empowerment. Now, how does that tie up to the government's housing program? The problem, not just of the National Housing Authority, but most government agencies, is what we call the concept of absorptive capacity. This is the ability of the government agency not just to plan, but also to absorb and use and allocate the budget that they request on a year-on-year basis. The problem of most government agencies is that they ask for a budget, and usually it increases every year, but they're not able to utilize it also on a year-to-year basis. Now, if what we do is we disaggregate the problems, for example, for housing, the National Housing Authority will still be in charge, but they will just take charge of a portion of the backlog for housing. The rest of it must go to the LGUs. Why LGUs? The LGUs understand the problems better at the lowest level, meaning at the barangay level. And you start with that. You're able to determine who among in the barangay, and not just then you go up to the city and municipal level and the province, kung sino pa yung may pagkukulang sa pabahay. Now, of course, there's also the distinction between rural as well as urban housing needs. Again, the planning really is at the level of the barangay. So what we are able to do now, since may tinataya tayo ng 400 billion every year na hindi nagagamit, so most of that should go to the LGUs, while at the same time declogging what national housing agencies would deliver on a year-to-year basis in terms of housing. No? So this will be a two-pronged approach. Meron pa rin national government approach to the National Housing Authority, but at the same time, meron na rin sa LGUs.
So really empowering LGUs as well with the budget reform that Senator Ping has been advocating in his campaign.
That's correct. And the BRAVE program will be recurring in most of the problem areas that we will be dealing in this interview.
This is my next question. What efforts will Senator Lacson undertake as president to reduce the country's carbon footprint, which is largely owed to the use of fossil fuels?
Okay. First of all, Ping Lacson believes that we need to revisit or go back to our long-standing support of the Paris Accords. Now, that being said, and that is merely from an international policy perspective, no? Domestically, we need to look at our energy mix. We are still mostly reliant on fossil fuel, and this is juxtaposed with the problem that inaangkat po natin yung ating crudo. Not to mention that we are not able to tap our sources, lalo na dito sa West Philippine Sea, because of our maritime disputes with our neighboring countries. Now, that being said, ang sinasabi po nila, we need to revisit the proposal for nuclear energy. Si Ping Lacson po ay naniniwala that we should not have a headlong rush into nuclear energy. Kasi po ang trend po ngayon, pababa na po yung cost per kilowatt in terms of solar as well as geothermal and also other sources. Now, that being said, dahil sagana po tayo sa araw, we can look more to tapping solar power. Pangalawa po, nandyan po yung ating continuing abundance of geothermal power. We need to look at our dams as well and increase their capacity to generate electricity as well as wind. Sagana rin po tayo dyan. We need to scale up our ability, most especially, and I'm looking at sa ating kandidato na who is looking at both solar as well as wind as an increasing investment dito to wean us away from fossil fuel and eventually maybe wean us away from our tendency to go back to yung sabi nga nila yung mga proposals for nuclear energy, which of course has safety issues primarily.
Alright.
Right, and then you did mention that you have been talking about reducing carbon footprint in efforts to address climate change. And one of the topics or the issues when it comes to climate change is also land pollution. And one of the contributors to land pollution is mining, which is related to my next question. Open pit mining has been cited as one of the most dangerous activities for the environment, as well as the indigenous peoples and environmentalists who oppose the activity. What specific measures will Senator Ping put in place in order to ensure responsible ethical mining?
Okay. Balik po tayo doon sa kanyang kagustuhan ng isang data-driven and science-based na approach. No? Nasabi na po niya na although meron po mga nagmumungkahi na kailangan magkaroon tayo ng moratorium pagdating sa mga unsafe mining practices katulad ng open pit mining, sa kanya naman po hindi tayo padalos-dalos dyan. He understands that for any country to be able to progress, that country must be able to tap into all of its available resources, albeit in a sustainable manner. That being said, bago po tayo mungkahi ng isang moratorium, or in fact, yung pagpapalawig, which is the reverse of moratorium, yung pagpapalawig naman sa mga mining activities, kailangan po muna siyang isubject sa isang data-driven and science-based na approach. So that being said, he will have to, it will be a concerted effort between the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as well as Congress, both to review existing legislation as well as for DNR to review its existing policies pagdating po sa mga activities na katulad po ng mining.
In his campaign, he advocates for a shift on the public-private partnership to minimize government spending on infrastructure. But he also said he wants to continue the Build, Build, Build program. Which projects do Senator Lacson deem as priorities, and how will he balance the features of the B3 and P3 programs in implementing these? 2 minutes.
Okay. Now, ang pinaka undergirding policy structure that will support a shift, no? Although kung tuloy naman yung BBB, but more of looking at it from a PPP model, the undergirding policy structure there should be better planning. Now, better planning should happen both at the national government agencies level as well as the LGU level. Now, in those areas where it is the national government which should be pursuing these projects, dyan po papasok yung hybrid between build, and private-public partnerships. Now, meron po tayong mga lower-level projects which are the better domain of the LGUs, especially at the city, municipal, and the provincial level. Doon po papasok yung ating mga local development planning councils or boards, no? Kasi sila po yung nakakaalam ng kanilang mga proyekto na kinakailangan. And how will that be supported? On top of their era, yun po yung, doon na po papasok ulit yung tinatawag natin na BRAVE, o yung Budget Reform Advocacy for Village Empowerment. This means that on a year-to-year basis for the next 6 years under Lacson administration, guaranteed po ang funding on top of their usual funding na meron pong 5 million ang bawat barangay, 100 million ang more than 1,200 cities and municipalities, and 1 billion per annum yung 82 provinces natin. So dito po dahil may guarantee po yung kanilang pagpupondo on top of their regular budget, they can now have multi-year planning at their level, no? As determined by the barangay, municipal or city, and provincial local development councils. Now, that being said, yun pong mga proyekto na kailangan po ang national government ang namamahala, nandyan po ang ating NEDA. But the priority should be not just physical infrastructure, but also digital or ICT infrastructure.
The question is from our partner youth group organization, Sinag Quezon Incorporated. Let's play the video.
I am Azia Brancilio from Sinag Quezon Incorporated from Quezon Province. My question for the candidates is, how will you integrate the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in your plans and terms in achieving national development and maximizing the potential of the country in taking part in the 2030 agenda that focuses on people, peace, and prosperity?
Okay. Ang susi po talaga in mainstreaming the Sustainable Development Goals dito sa ating national planning is really to to empower that portion of the NEDA. Ang NEDA po actually talaga ang responsable dun sa pag-mainstream ng ating Sustainable Development Goals. Siyempre, nandun na rin po yung input ng ating DENR, DOST, and our Climate Change Commission. That being said, yung Sustainable Development Goals po kasi need to be incorporated dun sa ating multi-year Philippine Development Plan o PDP na tinatawag. Pagpasok po ng bagong presidente, kung papalarin po si Ping Lacson, yun pong natitirang 6 na buwan for 2022 is basically should be devoted for planning. Because effectively, his policies and the budget allocated for those policies will start in 2023 already, all the way to 2028. So he only has 5.5 years actually to get his program running. So itong 6 months po ito, dapat i-google natin na palawigin, palakasin yung pag-mainstream ng SDGs natin dun po sa ating Philippine Development Plan. And the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028 should reflect that mainstreaming of the Sustainable Development Goals. Na kalakip na po doon yung people, peace, at yung iba pang objectives ng SDGs natin.
And we move on to the last question. And given on Senator Lacson's strong stance on the effectiveness of the anti-terror law, being one of the main authors of it, how will activists be affected in an environment that punishes criticism in the presence of the ADL and the NTF-ACL-AC, which have been deliberately used to target perceived enemies of the state, even without prior evidence? 2 minutes.
We need to first disabuse the perception that the anti-terror law has been designed to clamp down on legitimate dissent. Ang una po talagang puntirya ng anti-terror law is to establish a policy mechanism and a law that will be able to punish terrorist acts while establishing institutions in order to strengthen our anti-terror campaign. Now, that being said, any law, not just the anti-terror law for that matter, can be weaponized if placed in the wrong hands, either of security forces o yung mga nag-implement ng batas. Now, importante po sa bawat batas, hindi lamang anti-terror law, na ang ating mga alagad ng batas are steeped in the principles of human rights. That is a function of both their training and their indoctrination. At the same time, meron din po tayong mga ombudsman institutions, not just the Office of the Ombudsman. Nandyan po yung ating Commission on Human Rights, nandyan po yung mga human rights offices, both of the Philippine National Police as well as the Armed Forces of the Philippines. These institutions must understand and must uphold human rights so that yung po kanilang mga law enforcement and military operations will be ensured that they uphold the highest standards of human rights and respect for peace and individual rights of our people. Now, that being said, I go back to the original promise of Ping Lacson being the principal author and sponsor of the bill. Siya po ang unang-unang tatayo kung ang batas na ito ay aabusuhin ng mga alagad ng batas at ng Estado. Now, as President, he will be able to ensure that what I said from the perspective of these institutions that implement the law will not be able to or should not be violating human rights and do not use the law as a weapon against legitimate dissent.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Ace. And that is the end of the moderator-curated questions. We now proceed to the questions from our partner youth group organizations. Sir Ace, one last time, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer. The first question is from our partner youth group, We the Youth Vote. Let's play the video.
The Filipino youth have always played a fundamental role in promoting social change in the country, but many factors hinder them from participating in the formal sphere of politics, especially in the SKs. What do you think are these factors, and what concrete steps will you take to ensure greater youth participation in local government units?
Okay, let's first deal with the issue of dynasties in local governance. Ang ating pong mga local government offices, including the SK, nagiging pugad po ng mga political dynasties. That being said, it basically cuts out the participation of other groups. And if we go to the youth, yun lang pong mga anak at mga kamag-anak ng mga nakaupong mga politiko ang nakakapag-participate po sa SK. But that is just the SK aspect, no? Now, kung titingnan po natin kung saan talaga mapapalawig ang partisipasyon ng ating mga kabataan sa local governance, we are looking at four aspects, no? Nandyan po yung Philippine National Volunteer Service Agency, again, under ng pamamahala ng NEDA. Nandyan po yung pagpapasa po ng finally, no, once and for all, ng isang anti-dynasty law para po ma-democratize natin ang partisipasyon ng ating mga kababayan, lalo na sa SK level, no? Na hindi lamang mga anak at kamag-anak ng politiko ang sumasali o lumalahok sa sangguniang kabataan. Pangatlo po, nabanggit na po natin yung ating tinatawag na internship program para po sa ating mga senior high school students. Not only are we training them for employable skills later on, yung early exposure din po nila sa ating gobyerno hopefully will encourage more of them to join government, and this continuous supply of young blood into our government will ensure na yung makabago at maayos na pamamaraan ng panggobyerno ay mapapairal natin, no, in the government bureaucracy. At ang pang-apat po, at tingin ko ito po ay kailangan ding palawigin. Matagal na po natin hindi naririnig ang partisipasyon ng National Youth Commission. It's about time that the National Youth Commission be taken to task, and yan po dapat ay isa sa ilalim ng more supervision ng ating Pangulo para po ang kanyang mga programa ay ma-elevate po yung status. At syempre, nandiyan na rin po ang like we said before, no, annually meron tayong tinatayang 400 billion pesos na unused appropriations. A portion of that must go to increasing the programs or the ability of the National Youth Commission to deliver programs that will encourage participation of the youth. So yun po yung apat na tinitingnan nating programa kung saan mapapalawig po natin ang partisipasyon ng ating kabataan.
And Sir Ace, now is the time for your final statement. With the elections fast approaching, why should the Filipino people vote for Senator Ping Lacson to be the next president of the Philippines?
From the time he became a cadet of the Philippine Military Academy to his service in the Philippine Constabulary until becoming the chief of the Philippine National Police, where the PNP enjoyed its highest approval rating because he was able to discipline inept, corrupt, and undisciplined policemen, Ping Lacson has already proven his mettle in the executive while displaying stellar leadership qualities. While in the Senate, he was able to present himself as a fiscalizer, and of course, he made a name by being the only legislator to turn down or not use his pork barrel fund. Therefore, when he says that he will be fighting corruption, it will be based on his track record and his ability to fight corruption, not just from an institutional level, but also from a personal level. Now, as president, he believes that the only way for an anti-corruption and a development program to prosper is by leadership, by example. On the very first day that he sets foot into Malacanang, Ping Lacson will open up his bank accounts, will also encourage those who are serving in his government to do the same. Because transparency is the twin brother of accountability. And the only way for his government to be accountable to the people is to first be transparent about their means, because that will eventually augur into a spirit of transparency and accountability across all the levels of government. Only then can we truly say that we can pursue an agenda of peace and development, because those leading at the top, led by the President, are open to the people and are accountable to the very people that they serve.
All right, and thank you, Sir Ace, for joining us in today's interviews. We would like to acknowledge the Commission on Elections and our media partner, the ABS-CBN News Channel, and the student-led initiative Atin ang Boto. We would also like to thank our partner youth group organizations, Sulong Philippines, Institute for Nationalist Studies, Kalikasan Pablo, Kurit Bulawan, We the Youth Vote, Sinag Quezon Incorporated, UP Samahan Tungo sa Progresibong Administrasyon, Xavier University Central Student Government, External Affairs Council of the ASMPH, Naga City Junior JCs, Autism Strong Philippines, and Zenith Philippines. Now, voters, it is your turn to fulfill your duty by exercising your right to vote. Their ideas and plans have been made clear today, and it is up to you to decide who will lead the country in the next 6 years. Your vote is for progress. Your leaders are for the future of the Philippines and beyond. This has been Foreword 2022, the Presidential Candidates Assembly. Once again, I am Mira Dosado from the GUIDON, and on behalf of the Foreword team, we thank you for your participation. Stay safe, vote wisely, at mabuhay ang kabataang Pilipino.